is really needed, that part for the whole industry, not only for the stakeholders and for the real estate fund or for the global operator, but it's needed from the market. And the more we integrate, the more the authorities in the local market can also be easy accepting it. Because you said rightly, Batu, so before there was mainly on building code, mainly on ticking boxes, but those boxes cannot be ticked anymore because that building is not fitting inside the building code. And if you're not doing that part of this journey together, then it will affect the entire industry.
Welcome to today's episodes of Data Centers on Fire, from prevention to suppression. Coming here today from Data Center World London, on our booth, VID Firekill. My name is Miguel Martinez. So I want to introduce you my guests from today, Riccardo, Guy, and Batu. Riccardo, can you start introducing yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm Miguel. Hi all. I'm Riccardo Cerati, Global Business Development Director for VID Firekill. Personally working in the water mist industry over the last 15 years. The same for the fire protection, together with sprinkler and gas suppression. On the data center side, having a global experience from edge to colocation and hyperscalers.
Okay, thank you, Riccardo. Batu?
Yeah. Hi, my name is Batuhan Kantar. I'm the passive fire protection specialist for Hilti, and I deal with data center projects across Europe.
Okay,
Guy?
thank you.
Hi, Guy Russell. Been working in data centers for the last 8 years or so as an architect, both on client side and with consultants, and very passionate about both passive and active fire suppression in data centers.
Okay, great. Thank you all for the short introduction. So, what we are used to in these episodes from Data Centers on Fire is to have an open discussion in which we just are not saying what's good or bad. We just want to just touch base on what's happening out there. I think if you look at the prevention and the suppression side, if you look at these two disciplines, it's like you cannot see them separately anymore. You need to define also your fire compartments. You need to keep the fire compartments and the smoke in that compartment. And then whenever you have an incident, of course, a fire, you also want to start to get the heat out of that and to suppress it. So you need also suppression there. So kicking off a bit, Riccardo, how do you see that importance of that integration of these two things?
Yeah, believe integration is a key today. If you look at the data center market and how it's evolving globally, it's not just moving boxes from country to country, following the power and following the technology, but it's really developing large scale and complex sites where there is a lot of challenges coming from the global perspective, going to the local market together with the local authorities, or simply the different timing for construction, because timing is really gold for construction right now. So being scalable, being fast in build up, and being fast in being compliance and getting all those approvals needed from the insurance side, from the local HJ, it requires integration. We cannot just work as single standalone companies in that complex process. The more we integrate, not only between vendors, but also between stakeholders in the market, it gets really the difference and it gets value to this market.
Yeah, Guy, the integration that Riccardo is talking about, I think that's key. Is that key? Is that something that is changing over the last years?
Absolutely. In the 8 years I've been working, the more and more the digital model that people are creating is becoming an essential tool. And as it used to be, if you like, stage 5, something that people developed in detail once everything was fixed, now the model is created right from the outset. And even while things are in flux and change, you can actually start to model it, and you can then start to see where the best solutions fit. And we were talking earlier about this, like the 80-20, 80% of it's probably quite straightforward. It's that 20%. And in fact, we were talking, that 10% where actually the design can change, and then also volumes and spaces then, so where a mist system might not have been the right solution because the volumes you can adjust and then make things actually appropriate for a much wider range of products and straightforward products without having to go and get special testing or special judgments. You're right, you're in the sort of standard zone much more, and it's doing that from the beginning, and I see that as being one of the big developments over the last 8 years.
Okay, that's benefiting us all or not, Batu? I think that integration.
Yeah, I think this approach right now is called holistic approach, right? Yes. All the suppression systems, containment systems, they work together in a data center. In the past, we would take the building code, we would design everything as per the building code, but we would we wouldn't care about the type of the data center, like if it's a data center, if it's a residential. We would just tick the boxes in the past. But right now we have fire engineers, we have all the experts like you, that we work together, we design these systems together, and we create tailored solution for specific projects like data centers. So all of these things, they work together and they have to work together in harmony.
Yeah,
But
and I think in a way this is driven by the market itself, because the market is demanding those data centers to be different in the way of they are building, the changing of the technology that they need inside, the modular pods, the air velocity they have there, the presence of more hazardous areas, the way they are configured and layouted inside. So it's really needed, that part for the whole industry, not only for the stakeholders and for the real estate fund or for the global operator, but it's needed from the market. And the more we integrate, the more the authorities in the local market can also be easy accepting it. Because you said rightly, Batu, so before there was mainly on building code, mainly on ticking boxes, but those boxes cannot be ticked anymore because that building is not fitting inside the building code. And if you are not doing that part of this journey together, then it will affect the entire industry.
And what is, if you look at that holistic approach, Guy, is that something we need to drive that? Because we are sitting here today, we're talking about this. It's because we are just teaming up and we want to talk about these things because we want to just integrate things. We want to work together to make it easier for our customers, our joint customers. But what should your opinion? Who needs to drive this? Is that a consultant? Is this really Hilti and VID stepping in and joining and watching and at least trying to collaborate, or is that the end user? Is that the GC? Who should push that?
I think ultimately it comes down to the clients seeing benefit. Before we were talking about, this is an open discussion.
Yes.
There's a downside to this collaboration, that early engagement, all that added value that you're adding in right at the beginning, that's not where you make your money. Your money is about selling the product in the end. But unfortunately, some clients say, okay, thank you for all of that, but we want commercial tension, is the usual phrase, at the end, or we just want to be the guts out of the project. And then all that work gets thrown out and you go to some local supplier who hasn't done any of that engagement, is actually not adding that value at the outset. So actually there is a danger, but the education of the clients that actually that value add at the beginning has added so much to the end of the project. I don't know how you counter that, because and that comes down to contractors being encouraged not to have to go out to the market at the end of the day. You've all seen that. So there are downsides, but the more you can educate the clients and then in turn their consultant teams, and Hilti, you've done great work in terms of coming out from being a supplier to a fast-stopping subcontractor up now to consultancy directly into the consultant team. Isn't it something you're really...
Is that, Batu, is that how we differentiate ourselves from the rest?
Yeah, I think so. Look, in these complex buildings, the requirements are so different. In the past, we would try to save the people, but these buildings right now, there is another important thing: protecting the asset, protecting any damage to the asset, like preventing any downtime. It costs so much to them. So when you start educating your clients, when you start discussing in early stages with the consultants and architects, everyone tells you their priorities. You tell them what can you do for them, for the suppression, for the containment, and in the end we come up with a solution that is tailored and that can prevent any of these issues, downtimes, or any compliance issues in the future. When you start working early, basically, when you educate the client, when you educate yourself, come into these conferences and talk with people like you, know what's going on in the industry, it basically adds so much value for future for us.
So we needed to get, like you're saying, also we needed to get some knowledge in-house. We needed to support with that knowledge the customer. There were, I think also Guy was saying in the past, perhaps you were just having some stuff, just selling your product to somebody and he was just doing something with it. Now we just want to engage from the first minute and there. to just show our added value that we have, and that's I think a big change. Ricardo, if you look at water mist, how is that, of course, just entering and just could be also giving that added value?
I believe that as we said also earlier, discussing together, guys, being this market change different, not being so more old fashioned or close to the old building codes. Everybody is looking now to tested solutions, because tested solution are it's something that can bring added value to the client and can be that kind of level of safety and security that can support that deployment. That's where WaterMist exactly fits in, because it's being a performance tested solution. Is on one side is compliant with the global and the local codes, but on the other side is also tested. So it's ensuring the client that there is a solution out there that is exactly tested for what is the specific need. So that's where WaterMist fits in for sure. And that's the same also with the fire stopping part, because the connection between both of them, having an active fire protection that is tested for a specific hazard and having a fire stop protection that is on the passive side tested for it, makes the integration perfect for the client. And if we see the clients, we are talking all with clients that are thinking of globally deploying sites. That thought is done in one office somewhere, either in US, either in UK, either in Ireland, and they don't have, because it's normal, they don't have that knowledge of all the local markets, so they need to have partnership that can support them on those local developments.
How are you doing that? How is Hilti doing that? That from global to local. You got some local ASJs asking you different things in Frankfurt as in Madrid, for example.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's one of the major issues we deal with. So Hilti works almost everywhere in the world, and if you go everywhere, you have different standards. In US, we have UL 1479. In Europe, EN 1366. There are a lot of different standards. So what we tend to do when we develop a product, we develop a product in a way that it can work in different regions, and then we have to test them for every different test standard. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but the local requirement, the local fire stop requirements from the market are completely different from the, for example, pharma or data centers. The construction method is completely different. The base materials you are using, it's data centers, it needs to be fast. We use sandwich panels, white walls everywhere. It's a different base material, it reacts differently in fire. So we gather all these feedback from the industry. Specifically for data centers, for example, we conduct at least 5 to 10 fire tests just to keep up with the industry, just to keep up with the industry trends and what's going on, to be able to help the clients in general.
Are we able to add some sustainability part to it? Do you think is this integration helping to be more to help the data center to be more sustainable?
Absolutely. Well, do you want to? Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
sustainability is a big
big topic in data centers. Look, from our side, sustainability can be achieved in two ways, because we have walls, we have gaps in the walls with services penetrating, and we are closing these gaps. The first way, basically design optimizing. Like if you are leaving unnecessarily big openings on the walls, if you have really complicated seals with a lot of materials to be added as like insulation materials, etc., that means you're consuming more, you're creating more carbon emissions. So design optimization is the first key to lower your carbon. And there are alternative products. Like we have, for example, all the traditional fire stop solutions like Firebat, Mastic. We manufacture low carbon alternatives like flexible seals, intumescent, fiber free, preformed product. They have low embodied carbon. They can be used if you have really high sustainability goals. But overall, I think sustainability, you need to cut down from concrete, etc. Guy, you would know better, but there are a lot of building materials releasing so many carbon during construction. I think some construction methods needs to change also to be able to achieve really sustainable data centers.
Yeah. And I think from your point of view with the mist system, the amount of water, the reduction in water, the storage of water, that is while power is the headline news, if you like, that is the big challenge in data centers, but the use of water is also increasingly becoming an issue in certain markets.
Definitely.
and certainly from moving to air cool from water chillers. So actually, that I think is a really big plus for water mist systems.
Oh, definitely.
And then the other side of that is that the when there is a discharge, the water that's then being discharged, and because it's a polluted water, it's not going back into potable water. It's got to be recycled, and that becomes a big issue when it's literally being thrown away because they haven't necessarily got the resources to pump out and do
Yeah,
all of that.
fully right.
So I think there's a
fully
really
right.
big message there, and I know you've got it on your board there. I think it's a really big plus for the mist system approach.
You're fully right, Guy. And I think this comes back to what we said before regarding the holistic approach and the testing solution. This allows to get different benefits, of course. We cannot expect as a manufacturer, but also as an industry, to have the local building codes to be sustainable, because those are local building codes that are developed for a protection aspect. They are not developed to be sustainable. Then on the other side, you have the government asking for sustainability, but those codes are old, of course, and they are having different targets compared to what the government is asking for. That's why an holistic approach and a tester solution that is fully accepted by local codes can bring added value on sustainability. And you're right, definitely the water consumption is a big benefit regarding dirty water, clean water. Some areas even without sewer. The more we reduce water, the better it is for sustainability. But also, the more we have test solution and good technology solution, the more we achieve sustainability through materials, for example, using much more higher qualities material, but perhaps pressure rated to be not too much with wall thickness, not too much including raw material in there. So we compensate the biggest the change of the type of material with a different wall thickness that leads to a more sustainable supply chain. And at the end of the day, you know, guys, sustainability is not just a capex thing, so it's just not like construction, but it's a life cycle process. So that's that's a game changing part.
Yeah. And sorry, just you mentioning about life cycle. I mean, that the other side of we were talking yesterday about repurposing of data centers,
That's
and
right.
I know better, but I think mist systems are a really good option for
Yeah, that's fine.
refurbishment. You haven't got the density of pipe work. You've got more flexibility in terms of, if you like, attacking the source of the of any fire with the mist. So I think that's a really big plus. Is that increasingly in the next 10 years, reuse and recycling is going to be a big issue as data centers become basically another round. The earlier ones, what are 10 years old, and they're going to start to be looking at stripping out to doing a different purpose, either through AI or other rack configurations. And mist is going to definitely be, or
Sure.
should be, on everybody's menu.
For sure. I think I'm talking about these retrofitting also in there. Well, what kept me by last evening, I was talking with an architect, and then when they are just making those feasibility studies, that they make the first designs, I was asking them, so what is your starting point? What are you using as your starting point if you start to just have that building even retrofitted or just have a greenfield? And then it's just she was saying like, yes, we do what we know, what we don't know we cannot do.
Yeah.
And then we just start with something, and then but when it really gets off is when all these MEP companies are coming and then are putting all their knowledge on the table. I said, okay, but what are you using then before? So uh, how is Hilti affecting anything that architects are thinking to build? You guys are is in contact with the architects. That's where, for example, the suppression part is not that much in contact. It's more with consultants, that kind of stuff. But I know that the architect is a big focus also in there.
To be honest with you, having been in that process, is that firstly, there's no such thing as a clean piece of paper. That you have some client that has and often many of the clients here in the show will have a product which they are using as certainly as the base point for any of their designs. And that will be about the white space, the data hall. There'll be a rack configuration which they believe is optimized for their particular market. And then whether you've got a deep plan or not with a fan wall solution, or whether you've got a more of a deep plan hyperscale arrangement. And then you've got the office space adjacent, which is also, they'll have a view on what sort of spaces they want. So actually, once those are set out, that will create your volumes and your fire compartments.
Yeah.
And that's when the conversation will often start with Hilti. So we have a fire compartment of this size. We've got walls which are 1 hour, half hour, 2 hour, depending on the market. And then you're starting to flex around. And then you're saying, well, I got some very big holes in there because I've got some very big ducts. And then they go, please, can you help me fill fill this very big hole? And then the specialist white wall guys will have views about how big those holes could be. So it's a sort of an iteration of the big pieces. Then you get into a solution, and then you go back round again, and you might adjust the structural bays, for instance. So that's a very big issue, is the structural grid in relation to the floor plan.
Yes.
And I think many architects and structural engineers don't spend enough time thinking about that, because they create problems, you know, don't they? The basically putting the wall in line with the structural grid causes you so many problems in terms of interface with the deflection of the beam, and then whereas if you move the wall away from the beam, you've got the head details way more straightforward. But those sort of things, I think, are missed from your experience.
No, that's 100% correct. But look, Hilti, the architects, the client, they know how to design the building. They know what they need. We will not be trying to change the building methods. They are all their designs, optimization, etc. What we do is we tend to work with them, understand them first, and then these kind of specific problems, when they occur, when we see them on site, when we see these problems and notice them,
that if you made
on
that adjustment, it would be so much more
on the design phase, etc. When we notice them, we note them, we let them know for the future projects. These are what we saw. These were your goals, but we weren't able to achieve them in the past, etc. And here's an innovative method, or here's a product we have tested last year, or here's a design that we saw in a data center, not your data center, but they've solved this with this way. Because, you know, architects are not just working in single clients, not always for the same co-location owner or hyperscale owner. They do lots of different data centers, from huge to very small data centers. And generally, there's a solution for many, many problems we see on site. We just suggest
Education. Just keep giving them the case studies that you have, talk with them, talk, and educate them just on what's out there, and then leave it there. Of course, you cannot
you can't enforce it.
All NDAs, of course.
Yeah. No, that's for sure.
I'm trying to not give any info about any of the projects.
No,
very hard.
How can Watermist help these architects? What can be in the building different if they think from the start on Watermist?
You know, if I look at the architect, the stage of design is frozen stage 5 and of stage 4 almost. I mean, civil wise. So Watermist can help them to support that civil frozen part at the early stages. First of all, reducing the water tank. One of the major issues they have in freezing designs is that they always have to change some technologies within that building. Changing those technologies is also perhaps changing shape of rooms, moving rooms, battery rooms, server rooms. Power is changing, so rooms are changing. So it's difficult for them to froze spaces. But what they can achieve with a much less water tank is to have perhaps some free space that they can host some other technical rooms in case the power increase or in case of any needs. And that can help them to froze design first, can help them to get building permit first. And we're not talking about safety, just talking about site selection, just talking about freezing design, just talking about permitting. And on the safety aspect, of course, it's a bunch of large benefit regarding the effectiveness against fire, regarding the space they have free, the obstruction management, the protection of the lithium-ion battery. So it's a full bunch.